Hi everyone. In this video, I'll demonstrate how to pass an array to a method. I first create a method that prints out an integer array in this format. Then I declare the array in the main and pass it to that method. The method has to be static so that I can call it from the static main method. It is void because it simply outputs an array and does not return anything. I call it print and it has a single parameter named array. This is an array of integers. The first statement, I output a square bracket. Now the next, I have a condition, and this condition checks two things. It checks if the parameter references an array, so it is not equal null, and if it does reference an array, I check if the length of the array is not 0. So if it's not 0, it has to have at least a single element. So the first part here is basically if the array references an array or not. If it doesn't reference an array, it would be null. It points to nothing. If it does reference an array, it basically points to the first element of the array. This one here checks how long the array is. So there must be at least one element so that I can print out a value. Now the first statement inside the then block, I output the first element in the array. So the element at index 0. And for the remaining elements, I use a for loop. So for int I equal 1. Note that I start at 1 because index 0 I already used up here, and so I already printed that element at index 0. So for the remaining ones, I want to start at index 1. I check that I stay within the bounds of the array, so I still use the condition I less than array.length, and I want to print out all remaining elements, starting with index 1. Now, because I already printed the first element here, I start out by printing a comma. So this is the comma after the first element. And then following that, I put a space and then the next element, which is at I. Now that I completed printing all the elements, after the if block, I output the closing bracket. There we go. And this should be the method that I needed. So it prints out a square bracket. If there are no elements or the array doesn't, the parameter actually doesn't reference any array, it would skip that if block and just print out a closing bracket. Otherwise, it prints out the values. Now let's declare an array in the main. And I call this empty. So I have an array here that is initialized to null. What I'll do next is I call the print method and pass in this empty array. And let's run this method and see what output we get. So this is simply an empty array. It really is null. There's nothing in it. Let's try outputting an array of a single value, and I call this single. And that value happens to be 5. I call the print method, pass in the single element array, and I call again this method. So here it prints out the array with a single argument. It went into the method. It is not null. The length is 1, so this is true as well. It enters the then block, prints out the element, which is at index 0. It is 5. Then it starts the loop with I1. 1 is not less than 1. The array length is 1. So I1 is not less than 1. So it doesn't enter the loop, skips it, and then just appends the closing bracket. And the last thing I test with multiple elements. I call this multiple. And here I just put some random numbers. And then I call the print method again, pass in multiple. I run this, and here I get the array that is comma delimited in square brackets. So it went again in the then block, output the very first element at index 0, which is the 3, and then starts at index 1. 1 is less than array.length, which in this case is 5. It enters this, then appends the comma and the space, and then the array at index 1. So this is the 8 here. And then it appends comma and 1. Next iteration, comma and 9. And finally, the next iteration, comma and 3. Then it increments I to 5. 5 is not less than 5, so it stops right there and adds the closing bracket. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.